Welcome back, Kings fans. I'm Jesse Cohen. This is All the Kings Men Live, presented by MANSCAPED. Joining me as she does every week, Carlin Baith. How are you doing this week, Carlin?
I am doing well, Jesse. I have my coffee, my cup of noodles, and I'm ready to hang out with you, so let's go.
Let's hang out. I love it. A quick respite from the waking nightmare that is 2020. Now, before we get into our conversation with Jackie Redmond and before we start talking about hockey, Carlin, I was reading an article a few weeks ago about the new Batman movie that's coming out. I don't know if you care about that sort of thing. I don't know if that catches your fancy.
Of course.
But the trailer was released a few weeks ago, and it's Robert Pattinson. Is Pattinson? I don't know. The guy from Twilight.
Pattinson. Pattinson?
Right, yeah.
Robert Pattinson.
And he is playing Bruce Wayne and Batman. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the article suggested that every actor and actress can be divided into one of two categories based on their energy.
Okay.
And the categories are you're either a Batman or you're a Joker. And the point of the article was that the reason this movie looks so interesting is that because Robert Pattinson gives off Joker energy, but he's cast as Batman. So it's sort of a weird like flip on the character. And I started thinking, and the article goes on to list all of these famous different actors that have different energies. You know, so and so is a Batman, so and so is a Joker, et cetera. Sure. It's an interesting read. But then I started thinking about hockey players, and I started thinking whether or not you could divide hockey players into those two sorts of categories. So, for example, I would say Anze very much a Batman.
Batman, hands down, for sure.
Right? Like, I think so. Right? There you go. Gives off the same vibe. Whereas a Drew Doughty very much a Joker, right? He's an improviser. He's artistic, a little chaotic. He likes to laugh.
The same laugh,
so,
too, I think.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Right, so you got it.
Yeah.
Where somebody like, I would say like Trevor Lewis, probably a Batman, right? Whereas
Trevor Lewis is like an Alfred, I feel.
Oh, all right, interesting. I thought,
you know what I mean?
That's a new wrinkle, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm throwing a wrench in there.
No, that's fine. That's great. That's why I brought it up. And of course, the problem is that this theory, I was thinking about all these different players, right? Crosby's a Batman, Ovechkin's a Joker, et cetera, et cetera. Sure. But it only applies to skaters because, of course, every goalie is Bane. Because no one cared who I was till I put on the mask. So anyway, that's it. That's my.
Bravo, Jesse.
So all of that is prelude to this week's Would You Rather, which is would you rather be a Batman or a Joker?
Oh gosh. Okay. I just feel like the Joker is gonna have a lot of fun, a lot of chaos.
Sure.
But they're evil. There's a bit of an evil in there. Not saying Drew Doughty's evil, right? But like there's a bit of there's a hint of mischievousness. Is that a word? Mischievousness, mischievousness.
Yeah.
We're making words up here on a Thursday. There's a hint of that, right? And I feel like I always want to try to be good, be the best possible version of myself, and be more of the hero. I feel like. So I feel like I'd want to be the Batman. I feel like the Joker I would mess things up. I would get blamed. I would try and tell jokes that weren't funny. I would bomb on stage. Like it would just be, it would be bad. So I feel like I would personally pick a Batman because I would want to model myself after Batman. Jesse, what about you?
Well, I mean, I think it's an understatement to say that the Joker's a little bit evil, but I would say it depends on who's doing the writing, right? Because the characters are like 80 years old or something like that. So some pretty horrific things written for both characters. But as far as like what energy, without getting into whether or not they've committed genocide or murder or any other horrendous crime, I don't know. I'm gonna lean towards Joker energy without all the crime and and
you like
actual
to stir things up,
Yeah.
You like to take a really beautiful, nice, untainted idea or thing and just go, but what about this?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Joker
or the
energy.
The scene in Batman from 1989 where they break into the art museum and they're
Whoa! Spoiler alert.
Actually, I wouldn't do that because I don't like to. Anyway, whatever. We're gonna. We had an opportunity to talk to Jackie Redmond earlier today, and we don't talk about Batman or the Joker or any of that. Strictly hockey. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at that right now? Joining us now from the NHL Network, Jackie Redmond. Thanks for joining us, Jackie. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. I'm so excited to be on. I follow both of you, and it's just super exciting to chat. I feel like I haven't interacted outside of my bubble as much as I normally would, so it's exciting to see new faces.
Speaking of bubbles, you have experienced both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference in Toronto and Edmonton. Now, I heard a rumor on Reddit, of all places, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt,
Oh boy.
that the people who have come from Toronto to Edmonton are sort of shocked at the decrease in amenities in Edmonton as compared to Toronto. Without throwing anybody or any specific thing under the bus, is that true?
Well, here's the thing. I can only speak to my own layer of this bubble life. So I am not in the same bubble as like the coaches and the players and the league. I am on the outer layer, which means I am allowed in the arena, but I'm at a different hotel. I'm allowed to go around the city and do those sorts of things. But I will say this. The crowd noise level in Edmonton is much, much, much quieter than in Toronto. Like, to the point, it's the first thing I noticed my first day here was like, wow, it's a lot quieter in this arena. And then it dawned on me that in Toronto, the crowd noise was ever present. It was always there to some degree. Whereas in Edmonton, you hear the crowd noise more so when there's a big save or a big scoring chance, and then there's nothing. So you can hear everything the guys are saying here, which was not totally the case in Toronto. So that would be my big thing.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. Like,
No,
I'm sitting at home when we're watching the games, it just sounds kind of like this, almost like a white noise, and it sounded very similar in both bubbles. So that's very interesting that's something that's different. Oh my gosh. Okay, so for fans that don't know, you are doing some amazing reports for NHL Network, and like you said, you're on a different kind of level than the rest of the team and or all of the teams and all the players and coaches and staff and whatnot. How like different is that than what you would normally be doing for your regular job? Like, this is such a huge change for you. Normally, you're in studio, you got your own safe little bubble there in your studio, but this is like out in the wild, wild west right now, literally.
Yeah, you know what? For me personally, it's different on a few levels. Like, number one, I've mostly in my career been a studio host. Like, reporting is not what my, specialty or area of expertise is whatsoever.
You're
So the
killing
last
it.
couple of years, I've dipped my toe. Like, just in the Stanley Cup final, I come and I do the reporting thing as well as host NHL now. But in this situation, I'm a full-on reporter for the last 6 weeks. And then it's not what normal reporting would be. I mean, we can't go to practices.
Yep.
The injury updates and statuses, as we all know, are very, very difficult to come by. We find things out basically during warm up, and then you don't actually get to have any one-on-one conversations with anybody.
Yeah.
And I think you lose a little bit of that human element when you're doing all of these post-game and pre-game pressers on Zoom. Like, in normal situations, you can go into a dressing room after a morning skate or a practice, and if you have something very specific to a player that you want to ask, A, you can usually get that player, and B, you're not going to take away from a short press conference situation by asking something that will really only benefit a story that maybe you're doing. Right. So I find it like I feel this pressure where if I'm going to ask a question in a Zoom conference, I want to make sure it benefits everybody and not just something that I want to talk about. Like, what's an example? Like, Rick Bowness is from Nova Scotia, right? Head coach of the Dallas Stars. Yep. And so he wears a pin for the shooting victims from the shooting that happened, I believe it was in April or May. It was during quarantine, self-isolation. There was a huge shooting there, and he wears a pin to honor those victims. And so I want to ask him about that, but I know it's a very specific story. So it's those types of situations that become a little bit tricky. It just for me, I think.
Jackie, before we dive into the hockey, I want to talk about your reaction to this scenario. I was listening to a podcast. They were talking about the NBA and the stoppage of play. And one of the things they mentioned, I hadn't ever considered it until listening to this. They said, most of these guys, they play a game. If they have a bad game, they go home, they decompress, they have the drive from the arena to their house, then they have their pets, their family, their kids, their friends, whatever it is. If they hop on Xbox, if they load up Netflix, they can escape. Right. Yeah. And then there's not another game for a day, maybe two, sometimes at the most, maybe three. Whereas in the bubble, there is no escape. Right. You don't get to go home to all of the distractions that you ordinarily have. There are some distractions, but there's all the other players using the same amenities, right? Trying to escape. And so it's like just a 24/7, feedback loop every time you play a game. I'm wondering if you had a similar experience. Obviously, you're not inside the bubble the way that players are, but you're not getting that decompression time. Has that impacted the way, your focus, your mood, your energy level? Like, how difficult has it been to just be on nonstop
You know,
On the road. Yeah, you're on the road.
Yeah, I'm going on. I think this is week 6 or 7 of
Wow.
straight hotel life, right? Because in Toronto, a lot of the other media people there, that's their home base. But for me, like I've been in a hotel since July 28th. So it's definitely different and interesting. But there's been a lot of talk about bubble life and is it hard on the players? And I know for fans and stuff, sometimes it's hard to comprehend that somebody who's playing a game for a living and making a ton of money and having all their meals catered could be having a hard time in that situation. But mental health is something that we talk about so much now, and rightfully so. It's at the forefront of a lot of conversation. And John Cooper, after Tampa's series against Columbus, was asked, you're going to get a few days off before the next round. How crucial is that? And he made a point to say it's great physically, but mentally for the guys and the players especially, he's like, coaches, we're always watching video and prepping for the next thing. Players more so like to step away and not think about hockey and play with their kids, or go to dinner with their wife, or just get away from the game a little bit and mentally reset. And in this situation, even though they're with their team and there's stuff to do in the bubble, like if you just want alone time and you want to escape from the mental grind of the playoffs, like you're going to an empty hotel room. So it's such a different thing. And for me, I'm not in the bubble, but I can say that I've had days where, I'm tired and I'm either alone at the arena because we have to be socially distanced. So I sit completely by myself, not even with my camera guy, like completely alone. You do your work and then you go to a hotel and you're once again completely alone. So there are days sometimes when I'm just like, man, I don't feel like myself today. And it's because I'm not really interacting with that many people on a real level. It's, I'm interacting with you guys right now, and I'll interact with, my camera guy who's wonderful. And then it's Zoom conferences. And so outside of that, there's really not a lot of human interaction. And I'm being socially responsible. So I'm not, going out to restaurants and bars or anything like that. Just because I don't want to do anything that could maybe, put me in harm's way with COVID. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way,
my favorite kind.
Like I hate saying that because I don't want people to think like I'm very grateful to be doing what I'm doing and I love it and I'm having fun. But yeah, there are mental aspects of it that have been tough for sure.
How many FaceTimes with Emmett and Clyde are we clocking in a day? How many?
Not enough, girl. You know what? So he is in Nova Scotia.
Emmett's the significant other. Clyde's the cat for everyone who's like,
who's really, the apple of my eye. And then there's Emmett, who I also quite like. But in Toronto, that was easier. Here, he's in Nova Scotia, so he's 3 hours ahead of me. So even though the games out here are at 6 and I'm usually out of the arena by 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock in the morning there. Yeah. So our FaceTimes are shorter and less frequent in Edmonton, but I miss my cat so much. I really do.
All those pics on Instagram. So cute. So cute. All
right, so let's get into the hockey. Tampa Bay ties it up with 7.8 seconds or something like that left in the game. I'm going to try not to pick one team over the other. It was heartbreaking if you're at all rooting for the Islanders. I think the Islanders would be the funnier team to win just because of Tavares.
Funnier?
Yeah, well, because Tavares leaves, Lamoriello goes to the Island, Barry Trotz goes there, Varlamov. Like, there's so many not reclamation projects. They're all great players and coaches, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like storyline wise, the Islanders would be the funnier, the Schadenfreude team. But Tampa Bay's been so good for so long. Is it an overstatement to say that they deserve to finally win. Like, it would be a shame if Tampa never wins a cup for how good they've been.
Yeah, I would say, and this is just like a personal thing, like the word deserve. I wouldn't say they deserve it, but I will say that it's a long time coming for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think we saw this with the Capitals a couple of years ago, right? Like a perennial playoff team, always really good, can never get past the second round. For Tampa, it's like, they have done so much in the last decade as a competitive team, especially the core group of that team that have been to a final, that have been to a conference final, that have been a historically good regular season team only to get swept. So Tampa's definitely a team that I think has taken their lumps, so to speak, and obviously have grown from them in the right way, especially last year and what happened against Columbus. I have to believe, because this is who I am as a human, that they don't become who they are this year without that happening to them. Like, I just don't think they do. I think up until last season, and rightfully so, they thought they were good enough to win the cup the way that they were constructed. And I think they learned through that experience that maybe that wasn't the case. And maybe they needed to have a line that represented something different, something other, I forget who it was, but another player on another team, it might've been on the Islanders or the Bruins, said, Tampa used to always be a team where every line sort of presented the same thing. High skill, really talented players. And now they've got that third line that is much different and has really been beneficial for them at certain points during this run. So I do think they're a bit of a team of destiny, especially after watching that game. Like, there's been so many scenarios where they haven't got a call or things have gone against them and they've overcome it and they've shown that sort of internal fortitude. So last night, as devastating as it was for the Islanders, like just an absolute dagger of a game, I think it really showed how strong Tampa is. And I think John Cooper's incredible reaction when they won kind of speaks to that a little bit. Like, wow, we had everything go against us. We lost one of our best players. We're down to 9 forwards. We're taking like 5-minute penalties. We got 5-on-3s happening and they still win. So they feel like a team of destiny for sure.
It's not his fault, but maybe a decade ago, I went to the Yard House, which is a bar across the street from Staples Center, after a game against Edmonton, and there was an Edmonton fan wearing a Jordan Eberle jersey at the bar, and we started chit-chatting, and at one point he drunkenly proclaimed that Jordan Eberle was the greatest hockey player alive in the league. I guess it could have been a decade ago, but maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. And we laughed at him and made fun of him. So now every time I see Jordan Eberle do something, again, not his fault at all, but every time he's on the ice for something bad, I always think back to that one fan and wonder how he's reacting to it. So seeing Jordan Eberle there as that pass from McDonough goes through, right, the entire Islanders defense with less.
That was an 8-year payoff for you.
Yeah, and
I love
really
that.
what that guy's
now just triggers you to think about this experience in a bar like 8 to 10 years ago.
He was so smug and so sure. And when we said, like, really, like the best player, like Sidney Crosby's out there doing his thing, and like Ovechkin and Malkin, but no, Jordan Eberle, and he was convinced. So anyway, shout out to that random Edmonton fan.
Yeah, if he's watching, I wonder what his reaction was last night. But I wonder I feel like last night's loss for the Islanders probably stung more than the Game 1 loss, no?
Yeah, no, it would have to. I mean, they played so right. Like, all the rhetoric leading into Game 2 was the Islanders will play a completely different game, and they did. Right, yeah. Everything everybody said, they'll shut down on defense, limit chances, they'll and they arguably they outplayed them for the whole game, and then to just lose it. I mean, it feels like an overtime goal, right? But you still have to trot out there for the last 7 seconds. It's just got to be heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, it was awful. And I was sitting there too, like such a rookie mistake. I'm sitting there watching the game and I do a post-game wrap, right? And I'm like, oh, this is going to overtime. So I'm like chilling. Like, I don't need to like have my wits about me. Like, we're going to go to overtime here. I'm going to have like an intermission to kind of be like, which way am I going with each team on the story here?
Gather your words.
There's a goal with 7 seconds left. I'm like, crap.
You bust out the notebook. You're like, shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm still pulling for Stars Islanders final. So in the last seconds, I'm thinking, okay, 1-1 in both series. This is great. The bad guys win Game 1, but the good guys come back and take Game 2. Let's talk about that Vegas Dallas series. I mean, Vegas is, I hate to admit it, but they're just really, really good.
Mm-hmm. They are.
That's it. That's my question. They're really, really good.
That's part of the statement. Listen, I just need to say this. They're really, really good.
How crazy is it that the Vegas Golden Knights have only been around for 3 years and potentially could play in 2 finals in that span? I mean, that is just nuts to think about. But yeah, they're really good. But I still think Dallas is better than people give them credit for. And I've been saying that all year long. I was saying that the first month of the season when people were panicking because they went 1-7-1 or whatever it was. So I do think that series, contrary to what a lot of people think, could go 6 or 7 games. But I think Vegas will pull out the W in the end. We'll see. They were pretty dominant game 2. So
yeah, we only like teams that win finals 2 out of 3 years. Just getting there doesn't do it. But you know, because of the flat cap situation and the you know the hit to hockey related revenue that the pandemic has caused, it's looking now like Seattle might have a chance to be better than Vegas was. Everybody was saying, well, nobody will make, nobody will make the same mistakes dealing with Seattle that they did with Vegas. Seattle won't have an opportunity to poach all these players. But now, I mean, Seattle could be really, really good if they play their hands right and work the leverage that a lot of teams are going to be under.
I love the and I used to say this too about, oh well, they're going to learn from Vegas's mistakes, and GMs aren't going to do some of the things that they did in that expansion draft. And then it dawned on me that, like, we've had how many trade deadlines, and we've seen people get fleeced over and over and over again. So like, never say never, right? Like, mistakes are going to be made. Players are going to, be expendable to teams that are then going to go on and have incredible seasons elsewhere. But I'm super curious about Seattle because I think that city, as much as Vegas embraced hockey, I feel like Seattle is just like going to eat this team alive in a good way. They're going to be so pumped to watch Seattle. I want to go out there. I'm like, does Seattle need somebody? Like, should I watch that job? I feel like that would be a really cool place to be. So I'm excited to see how it goes. It's going to be intriguing though, for some of the reasons that you just mentioned, because the cap is put so many teams unexpectedly in a tough spot. So we'll see. And for Vegas, I mean, I think they're going to hang on to Leonard. I think they're going to try to find a way to do that.
Great.
So that's another interesting storyline to follow over the next little while as well. But I think that's what they want to do. That's what I've heard. So if they can make it happen under the cap, we'll see.
Could Fleury be the starting goalie for Seattle too?
Could you imagine? Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh, like the nicest guy in hockey, right? Like, just can't stay in one place.
Yeah.
Actually, that I wasn't even going to ask this, but I'll sort of a good feed. Now you were in a different bubble when it happened, but the Alan Walsh tweet with the sword going through Fleury's back, was that as big a deal within the industry as it was on social media with the fans?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was. I mean, the media, it's like the media ate it up, obviously. Like, guilty. Like, everybody was talking about it. And I mean, I'm still shocked that it happened, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I can't believe that an agent put that out there. And at first I was like, aha, that's funny. And then I just really started thinking about, like, the time of the year that this is happening, what's going on for that team. It was just a really interesting decision. I would say.
Nice word for it, yeah.
Because, and we can argue it. Did Fleury know that he was going to do it or not? I mean, no one will ever really know except for Fleury and Alan Walsh. But it just puts Fleury and that team in a really awkward position, I think. But they seem fine, so I guess all is well for Vegas. But yeah, that was a weird one.
So we're going to go ahead and put you on the spot here. Who wins the Stanley Cup?
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to go Tampa Bay Lightning.
I knew it!
I think it'll be Tampa Vegas in the final. And I think Vegas, I mean, it'll probably go 7. But I just think Tampa has been through so much together that they've proven it over and over and over again, just in this run alone, that they're never really out of it. They can battle back and find a way to get the W. So I think it's Tampa. I think that they've really figured themselves out and found an identity. So I think them, but it's gonna be crazy if it is Tampa Vegas. But I'll go
to that. We're gonna hold you to that. Okay.
That's right.
7 games. Tampa wins in game 7.
Oh.
3-2.
Oh. Okay.
Well, my rule is always no new happy people, and Vegas would be the only team that's never won it before. So I got a 75% chance of no new happy people.
You have to suffer, right? Vegas.
That's right.
Vegas hasn't suffered enough. Like Tampa has suffered, especially last year. I mean, I felt the pain of that sweep at the hands of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like, just embarrassing.
I figure that the Blue Jackets going out the way they did this year has got to make Tampa feel a little bit better, right? I mean, Columbus, not the way they went out, but the way they acquitted themselves this year without Panarin, without Bobrovsky, without all the players that left. And they still show up and give another team.
I have such a soft spot for the Columbus Blue Jackets. This team has been written off over and over and over again ever since Nash left. Like, they've always been, Columbus, they're going to be the joke of the league. And then they kind of never really are. So I love the Blue Jackets. I have a soft spot for them. I think John Tortorella could have very easily won Coach of the Year. I mean, they were supposed to be in the basement after losing all those guys. And there they are hanging, eliminating Toronto, which nobody thought they would do. Everybody thought, that was a write-off of a series. So I love the Blue Jackets. I want good things for CBJ. I really do.
Well, here in LA, we want no good things for any team other than the Kings, but we want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jackie. We appreciate you coming on the show today, and have fun up in Edmonton.
Thank you. You guys are the best. I love how real you guys keep it.
Post more pics of Clyde, please.
That's right.
I'll get Emmett to send me some. I only have one.
Yes.
Thanks, Jackie.
Bye, guys.
It's one all, one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
Huge thanks again to Jackie Redmond from NHL Network for joining us there. And of course, thanks to everybody watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Twitch. And of course, a huge thanks to MANSCAPED. MANSCAPED is an official partner of the LA Kings. Thanks to this revolutionary company, manscaping accidents are a thing of the past. Just get yourself the Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0. Inside, you'll find products like their Lawnmower 3.0, which is advanced skin-safe technology, so this trimmer won't cut you. You can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code KINGSMEN at manscaped.com. Go to manscaped.com and use the code KINGSMEN. And, of course, thanks, Carlin, for joining me again this week.
Thank you,
Carlin.
Yeah,
look, it's another week in the living hellscape that is 2020. We hope everybody is staying safe regarding the pandemic. We hope everybody's staying safe regarding the fires. We talked earlier in the year, in the decade that has been 2020, about maybe there was too much hockey in the first round in the preliminary rounds. But now that we're into the conference finals, one game a day, everybody's staying home, we hope. So that gives us with a lot of extra time to kill. And I'm curious if you've been watching anything that's really moved you in the last month or so.
Before I get to that, remember when we had all that hockey?
Yeah.
And you were like, are we going to miss that? I don't know. Are we going to miss that? I missed that. I want 5 games a day. I want 5 games a day. Okay? I'm missing it big time right now. But in terms of things I've been watching, stuff I'm loving, I am obsessed with Cobra Kai. It was a YouTube original show that is now on Netflix, like newly on Netflix within the past week or so. And it's a series based off of the original Karate Kid movies. So it's the same actors who played Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso, and they're in Cobra Kai. Like, it's a whole series based off of them. I'm so fired up about it. I started watching it. It's phenomenal. I stopped watching it to then go back and purchase and download all of the original Karate Kid movies just to refresh my memory. So now I'm on that project of watching Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3. And then the next Karate Kid wasn't included in that bundle, but like somehow I like associated that with the trilogy, but it's like not included, and I feel bad for Hilary Swank, and I don't know if that's like a thing that people don't include that in the trilogy.
Swank's doing all right.
I know, but like, why don't people include that in there? So anyway, and then long story long, I tweeted about how much I love Cobra Kai, and one of the musical composers who creates the music for the show, it's like this really cool like 80s synthwave type of stuff, Zach Robinson, tweeted back and was like, I love when my worlds collide, because he's a huge Kings fan. So it was like this whole like awesome little discovery. So shout out to Zach Robinson and him being a Kings fan and creating some dope music for Cobra Kai. Long story, even longer.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna force it to go even longer still. Karate Kid came out in 1984.
Okay.
I was 6 in 1984. I'm assuming you were not yet born.
I don't think I was a thought yet.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah.
So for me, Karate Kid is already testing the bounds of my nostalgia patience. Where like, yeah, I remember Karate Kid from when I was a kid, and it got played on cable a bunch. And like, okay, I am familiar with and aware of the existence of the Karate Kid franchise, and I'm a sports fan, so I pay attention to Bill Simmons. So I've been forced by proxy to be even more aware of the existence of the Karate Kid because, you know, he's a little bit older than me, so he was a little bit older when it came out, so it's more in his wheelhouse. But like, what does the Karate Kid mean to, like?
I think it's like.
Do you really care about Karate Kid, or is Cobra Kai just that good?
I think okay. First of all, Cobra Kai is that good.
Okay.
And I think it'd be a similar thing as if they created a show on the Goonies, or you know what I mean. Like it's something that the Goonies would have come out when What year is that? Wait, let's look this up while we're here.
It up.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. The Goonies. The Goonies.
I mean, but I would argue that the Goonies is good.
Right? No. Yeah. But the Goonies, 1985. It's one of those movies that even though it came out before I was born, it's something that, like you said, was played on cable TV. You know, we've seen it over and over again. If they created a series now with the actors from the Goonies and it was a spin-off of the Goonies and it was done as well as Cobra Kai, I'd be equally as into it. So I think
with Sean Austin and Josh Brolin.
Let's go.
and Corey Feldman.
Yes, let's go. But like it plays on all the right nostalgia chords, and then also just like it invokes or it like plucks something out of you that you probably didn't even know was there. I think because of how well done the show is. If the show was not well done, would we be so hyped about it? Maybe not. But it is like just so well done. The way it's directed, the little stories, the storylines, like it plays on every chord, and then the music is like, you know what I mean? I love it. Have you seen it yet?
I have not. I
think you'd like it. I really do.
When it was on YouTube, when it originally came out on YouTube a couple years ago now, right?
I think 2018 was when it debuted.
I sort of saw it and I was a little bit curious just because, right, it is such a well-known franchise, and to bring back, right, the villain of the original movie and to sort of everything I'm led to believe is that the show is sort of set with him as the protagonist, right? He's the main character. So that's cute. That's an interesting idea, you know. But but I just maybe it's because I wasn't allowed to watch violent movies as a kid. So for some reason, when I was growing up, real violence like Karate Kid, not okay, but fake violence like, let's say, the Transformers movie, perfectly fine. Okay. Even though the Transformers movie is a horrifically emotionally scarring experience for
some of the bully
kids,
scenes in Karate Kid, though, they're pretty realistic. Like that could be kind of scarring. If I watched that when I were little, I'd be afraid of like every 8th grader I've ever seen then.
But nobody gets killed and has their body thrown into the void of anyway, whatever. So for me, you know, Karate Kid is one of those things where I look at it and I just never quite understood why everybody was so invested in it, but whatever, that's just me. But yeah, I'll probably get around to watching it.
Good.
But the show that I've really been into, and listen, everybody loves to sort of call me a grouch and a crank and a cynic and all these things. And, everybody.
Where are they? Let me know.
Everybody.
I will defend you, Jesse.
No, it's fine. Like I lean into it. But the thing that bothers me is that the idea is that I don't like things, or that I find ways to dislike things, and that I just dislike things for the sake of disliking them, and I can't ever enjoy stuff. And this is not true. So I want to take this opportunity to climb to the tallest mountain I can and proclaim my love for something that I think is just wonderful and great. And it's Ted Lasso.
Okay.
And I started. It's on Apple TV, and I'm ordinarily would never say this, but it is worth the price of the subscription to Apple TV. So I think it's like $4.99 a month or something. So you're paying a buck and a quarter per episode. Totally worth it. Started watching it fully expecting it to be dumb, forgettable, shallow, and just disposable entertainment. The premise is that not even a D2, maybe like a D3 or lower college football coach from America. Gets hired to be the manager for a Premier League team, or maybe not. I don't know enough about the levels of British soccer, but to coach a professional soccer team or football team in England. And he doesn't know anything about the sport, doesn't know anything about the country or the culture, but he's just so relentlessly positive and optimistic. He's the kind of person that I would ordinarily probably hate to hang out with.
Sure.
But the show is essentially taking the nicest person you can imagine and then showing how he prospers by being inherently decent and intrinsically nice in a world where the media, the players, ownership, the fans, everybody's expecting him to fail. Everybody thinks he's an idiot. And everybody can't wait to laugh at the failure. And the show's thesis is essentially niceness is good because it's nice. And
I love that.
And it's really, really lovely. And you said your world's collided, right? You got a tweet from the composer from Cobra Kai. Yeah. I tweeted, I was trying to figure out how to express my love for this show on Twitter, and I finally just came up with I love Ted Lasso. And Jason Sudeikis liked the tweet. So, so there you go.
Wow.
It's a really and I also tweeted out Ted Lasso may not be the antidote for 2020, but it's a start.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. It is just a really nice show without pretension about nice people being nice when they have every reason not to be, and it makes me cry. So there you go. You're nice.
Getting some love in the chat from that right now. Kat
a great
says,
show.
"Wow, very much relate to Jesse." So you're
there
maybe,
you go.
Maybe that's the show that Kat will go watch now as well. Oh my gosh, I'm sold. I want to watch Ted Lasso now. I do. Damn, and Jesse.
The elevator pitch I would give is it's Major League meets I'm gonna have to look up real quick how I described it to my friend, but it's like Mr. Rogers meets Major League, basically.
Yeah.
So and if you like sports, right, you don't have to know anything about soccer or anything, but if you like sports, you like sports movies, it trades heavily on those tropes and on those themes. So it's great. It's real. It's the producers, the movie Producers, the Mel Brooks movie Producers. Yeah. Producers plus Major League plus Ned Flanders. That's my pitch.
Wow.
For
Oh, chat is asking, is the show on Netflix? No, it's on Apple TV.
Apple TV.
Jesse was saying. And then T Price is saying, you are so cool, Jesse.
Well,
I can't agree more.
And I think you can get a free free weekly subscription, and I think there's only 5 or 6 episodes so far. You can binge through them real quick and then decide if you want to spend the $6 a month, or $5, whatever it is. And for me, it's worth it, right? $1.25.
Yeah.
A week.
I've got a couple more suggestions here from producer Chris. Mm-hmm. So Chris is suggesting Raised by Wolves on HBO for any sci-fi fans of Ridley Scott who did Alien and Blade Runner, and watch Raised by Wolves, and then also Lovecraft Country on HBO. And that one I was asking for, what's that one about? And you both were like, well, just watch it. So I'm curious.
Yeah,
I want to watch Lovecraft Country. My gosh.
I will say, maybe not for kids, the Lovecraft Country. I haven't watched
Okay.
Raised by Wolves yet.
Is this like an 18 and up sort of thing?
Well, it's thematically and tension-wise, right?
Okay.
And I can't remember if there's language. I'm sure there is tons of bad language. Maybe not for kids. Ted Lasso, on the other hand, great. Well, maybe not for kids either. Final recommendation from me, though, tying it all the way back to the beginning about Batman energy versus Joker energy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't discover this show until a few weeks ago. They've already run through 2 seasons, so I'm late to the party. And this one is definitely not for children.
Okay.
And maybe not even for some adults.
Uh-oh.
But the Harley Quinn cartoon, currently available on HBO Max. If you like comic book, sci-fi, fantasy type stuff,
Yeah.
and if you like very, very dark, very, very adult humor, also wrapped around a story about very nice people dealing with, the difficulties of being alive in 2020.
Sure.
It's also a very sweet show. It also has some very tender moments wrapped in an absurd comic book, violent, profane
Is this
rapping.
an animated show, you said?
It's animated, and
Okay.
like I said, very much not for children.
Yeah.
At all.
Noted.
And like I said, probably not for most adults. But at its core is a very sweet story about people who care about each other. And I'm discovering that in 2020, that's really what motivates me these days, is hearing about people that care about each other. So
Jesse,
I'm
episode of just good news,
Yeah,
like
there we go.
the John Krasinski show, good,
Yeah.
what is it? The good news show, where it's
There
just
we go.
all good stuff.
Well, look, my friend has a corgi named Sandwiches.
That's the best thing I've heard all morning. That's
Yeah,
great.
this probably won't work, but here, just in the spirit of, oh no, it's not gonna work. I can't show the picture of Sandwiches. But anyway,
that was some voodoo.
but anyway, shout out to Sandwiches. Shout out to people caring for each other, and they moved the draft up, so we are closer than ever to the NHL draft, Carlin. So we'll have plenty to talk about in the weeks to come.
More good news on the way. I love it.
I think that is going to wrap it up, though. So again, thanks to everybody watching at home. Thanks to Jackie Redmond. Thanks to producer Chris for making this happen. Thanks to everybody behind the scenes at the Kings who let us play in their sandbox. Thanks to Manscaped. And Carlin, as always, thanks to you.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm going to go watch Ted Lasso now.
There you go. Do it.